Monday, 07:23 a.m. Central European Time. Lithuanian border guards at the Kybartai checkpoint stop a Russian military convoy attempting to cross into Kaliningrad Oblast. 22 vehicles, military markings, personnel in uniform. The convoy commander presents transit documents claiming humanitarian supplies under existing agreements. Lithuanian authorities inspect the trucks. Hidden beneath tarps and false cargo floors, they find weapons, ammunition, electronic warfare equipment. This is not humanitarian aid. This is military resupply disguised as civilian transport. The Lithuanian border commander makes an immediate decision. Convoy denied. Vehicles impounded. Personnel detained for investigation. The Russian convoy officer protests. Contacts Moscow command. Within 18 minutes, the Russian Foreign Ministry issues a statement. Lithuania has committed an act of aggression. Russian military personnel are being held illegally. Transit rights are guaranteed by international agreements. The blockade must end immediately. Time frame given, 24 hours. Consequences if not, unspecified but severe. This is the Suwalki Gap crisis going from theoretical to actual in less than 30 minutes. Because the narrow corridor connecting Poland to the Baltic states has always been NATO's most vulnerable pressure point. And now, someone is pressing. The gap is only 80 kilometers wide. 2 roads, 1 rail line. This is the geographic choke point that could cut off Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania from the rest of the alliance. Russian forces in Kaliningrad to the west. Russian ally Belarus to the east. NATO forces would have to fight through this corridor to reinforce the Baltics in any conflict scenario. Wargame simulations have shown this repeatedly. The side that controls the Suwalki Gap controls the strategic initiative in Eastern Europe. 08:15 a.m. in Brussels. NATO headquarters receives the alert. Emergency North Atlantic Council session convened. All 32 ambassadors connect within 40 minutes. The Lithuanian representative presents the evidence. Photos of the concealed wound. Documentation showing falsified manifests. Testimony from border personnel. This was not a mistake. This was deliberate attempt to smuggle military equipment through NATO territory. The Polish representative speaks next. Poland has increased alert status for units near the gap. 2 mechanized brigades are moving to forward positions. Air defense batteries are being repositioned. If Russia attempts to force the corridor open, Poland will assist Lithuania in defending the border. This is Article 5 territory. An attack on Lithuania is an attack on all. The German ambassador urges caution. Verify the intelligence. Exhaust diplomatic channels. Avoid military posturing that could be misinterpreted. Escalation serves no one's interests. The American ambassador states the position clearly. The United States stands with Lithuania. The border closure is legitimate enforcement of sovereignty. Russia's ultimatum is unacceptable. But the goal remains de-escalation through strength. Show resolve while maintaining communication. What should command do first? A. Military reinforcement. B. Diplomatic negotiation. C. Economic pressure. The debate reveals the fundamental tension inside the global conflict room framework, where alliance unity is essential, but member states have different threat perceptions and different risk tolerances. Poland and the Baltics see existential threat. Western Europe sees regional dispute. The gap between these views is almost as wide as the Suwalki Gap itself. 09:47 a.m. in Moscow. The Russian Security Council convenes at the Kremlin. Military leadership presents options to President Putin. Option 1. Diplomatic escalation. Increase pressure through official channels. Demand immediate release of personnel and equipment. Threaten economic retaliation against Lithuania. Cut electricity supplies. Restrict gas transit. Apply sanctions. Make Lithuania hurt economically until they back down. Option 2. Military demonstration. Move forces in Kaliningrad and Belarus to high readiness. Conduct exercises near the borders. Show that Russia can close the gap from both sides. Missiles capable of striking the corridor. Create military facts on the ground that NATO must consider before acting. Option 3. Direct action. Russian forces cross into the corridor to protect Russian citizens and ensure freedom of transit. Take control of the key roads and rail lines. Present NATO with fait accompli. Either accept it or start shooting. The bet is that NATO will choose acceptance over war. Putin asks the question that matters. What is NATO's actual willingness to fight for 80 kilometers of Polish-Lithuanian border? The military intelligence assessment is sobering. NATO conventional forces in the region are currently outnumbered. Russian forces in Kaliningrad and Belarus, combined, can mass approximately 40,000 troops with armor and air support within 72 hours. Current NATO forces in the Gap region, approximately 8,000 with limited heavy armor. Reinforcements would take 4 to 6 days to arrive in strength. That gap in time is a gap in capability. The decision is made. Increase military readiness immediately. Deploy additional forces to jumping-off positions. Prepare for operation to secure the corridor if Lithuania does not back down. But first, apply maximum diplomatic and economic pressure. Give them 24 hours to see reason. 11:30 a.m. Russian state television begins broadcasting. The narrative is carefully constructed. Lithuania is violating international law. Russian citizens are being held hostage. NATO is encircling Russia. The West is provoking conflict. Russia has no choice but to defend its interests and protect its people. Public opinion is being shaped. International justification is being established. The information battlefield is being prepared for what might come next, because modern war begins with narrative long before it begins with bullets. Polish Military Command activates contingency plans. The 16th Mechanized Division receives movement orders, forward deployment to positions overlooking the Suwalki Gap, establishment of defensive positions along likely Russian approach routes, coordination with Lithuanian forces for integrated defense, air defense systems priority deployment to protect the corridor from Russian aircraft and missiles based in Kaliningrad. F-16 fighters placed on high alert at Malberg Air Base. The Polish Chief of Defense contacts NATO Military Command. We need reinforcement. We need it now. If Russia moves, we have 72 hours maximum before we are overwhelmed. What happens next determines the next decade. NATO must decide if this is the crisis that triggers Article 5 or the crisis that reveals Article 5 is conditional. If alliance forces deploy in strength, Russia might back down. Or Russia might see it as provocation and strike preemptively. If alliance forces delay, Russia might calculate NATO is weak and move forward. Or Russia might see it as off-ramp and de-escalate. Every decision depends on guessing what the other side will do. Every guess risks catastrophic miscalculation. 13 allies. The American president convenes the National Security Council. Secure video conference links Washington, European Command in Stuttgart, and key NATO capitals. The intelligence assessment is clear. Russia is preparing for potential military action in the Suwalki Gap. Force concentrations are increasing. Communications are surging. Logistics are being positioned. Timeline estimate. Russia could initiate operations within 48 to 96 hours if they decide to move. The Secretary of Defense outlines military options: immediate deployment of additional brigade combat team to Poland, reinforcement of air assets in the region, deployment of Patriot missile batteries to defend the corridor, movement of carrier strike group closer to Baltic Sea, show of force to deter Russian action. The Secretary of State argues for diplomatic track. Engage Russia through all available channels. Use NATO-Russia Council despite its dysfunction. Engage through UN if necessary. Offer face-saving compromise. Perhaps international observers at border crossings. Perhaps revised transit protocols. anything to avoid military confrontation. The Director of National Intelligence raises the strategic question. If we reinforce heavily and Russia backs down, we win this round. If we reinforce heavily and Russia attacks anyway, we are in a shooting war with a nuclear power over 80 kilometers of border. If we do not reinforce and Russia moves, we lose the Baltics and NATO credibility is destroyed. Which risk is acceptable? The President makes the decision. Deploy the reinforcements, activate NATO response force, but simultaneously engage diplomatically at highest levels. Use the hotline to Kremlin. Make clear that NATO will defend every inch of alliance territory, while offering Russia a path to de-escalate with dignity. This is deterrence combined with dialogue. This is the strategy that might work or might fail, but doing nothing is guaranteed failure. 1542 Zafra. American forces begin loading equipment at Ramstein Air Base in Germany. C-17 transport aircraft prepare for rapid deployment to Poland. The 173rd Airborne Brigade receives alert orders. Deployment timeline: boots on ground in Poland within 18 hours. This is NATO moving at crisis speed because the Suwalki Gap cannot fall without attempting defense. At 16 o'clock Moscow time, the Russian ambassador to NATO receives urgent communication. Meeting requested immediately. The NATO Secretary General delivers the message personally. NATO takes the border incident seriously. NATO supports Lithuania's sovereign right to enforce border controls. NATO will defend alliance territory. But NATO does not seek confrontation. NATO proposes immediate talks to resolve the transit issue. Russia is invited to present its concerns through proper diplomatic channels rather than ultimatums and military threats. The Russian ambassador's response is cold and formal. Russia has given its terms: 24 hours. After that, Russia will ensure freedom of transit by any means necessary. The meeting ends after 12 minutes. Necessary deterrence or dangerous escalation. The debate rages in every capital because both sides are now positioning for potential conflict over a corridor that most people cannot find on a map, but which represents the difference between NATO as functioning alliance or NATO as aspirational concept. 1820 CET. Russian forces in Kaliningrad Oblast increase readiness to level 2. This is one step below combat operations. Tanks move out of garrison. Artillery units deploy to firing positions. Electronic warfare systems activate along the border. Helicopters conduct armed patrols. The Baltic Fleet submarines put to sea. This is not just signaling anymore. This is operational preparation. Lithuanian forces report increased Russian reconnaissance activity. Drones crossing the border. Cyber attacks against government websites. GPS jamming in border regions. Communications interference. This is shaping the battlefield. This is what happens in the hours before operations begin. Polish and Lithuanian commanders coordinate defensive plans. The gap has 2 main roads and 1 rail line. Block those, and you block Russian ground movement. But Russian forces do not need roads if they are willing to accept casualties and move cross-country. The terrain is mixed forest and farmland, defendable but not impassable. The defensive plan relies on buying time for NATO reinforcements to arrive. Hold the key road junctions. Make Russia pay for every kilometer. Delay is victory, because every hour of delay brings more NATO forces into the theater. Which system activates first in a missile alert? A. Radar. B. Satellites. C. Command link. The answer becomes irrelevant when the missiles are tactical and launched from just across the border at ranges where warning time is measured in seconds rather than minutes, and defensive systems have barely any time to engage before impact occurs. 21 Saksagati. 6 hours remain in Russia's ultimatum. No indication that Lithuania will change position. No indication that Russia will back down. Both sides are committed to their narratives. Both sides have forces positioned. Both sides have publics watching. Backing down means losing face. Standing firm means risking war. This is the classic trap of brinkmanship, where neither side wants conflict, but neither side can afford to appear weak. NATO intelligence detects Russian military transport aircraft landing in Belarus, additional troops and equipment flowing into positions east of the gap. The second axis of potential Russian advance is being reinforced. If Russia moves, they will come from both directions simultaneously. NATO forces would face encirclement. The tactical situation is deteriorating, even as the diplomatic clock runs down. The American Brigade Combat Team lands in Poland at 22:15 CET. Vehicles offload rapidly. Convoy forms up for movement to forward positions. Travel time to the Suwalki Gap, approximately 4 hours. They will arrive around 02 AM. The timeline is brutal. Russia's ultimatum expires at 07:23 AM. The window between NATO reinforcement arrival and Russian deadline is less than 6 hours. 6 hours for Russia to see increased NATO presence and recalculate, or 6 hours for Russia to decide that NATO reinforcement proves hostile intent and justify whatever comes next. If you follow global conflict analysis, type GCR. The night passes with both sides watching. Satellite imagery shows Russian forces remain in attack positions. Communications intercepts suggest no stand-down orders. NATO forces continue flowing into Poland. Air defense radars sweep the skies. Both sides are ready. Both sides are waiting. Both sides are hoping the other blinks first. 06 Tuesday. 1 hour and 23 minutes remain. Lithuanian border guards report Russian military vehicles approaching the checkpoint. The same convoy from yesterday. New vehicles, heavier escort. The convoy stops 300 meters from the border. Troops dismount, take up positions. This looks like preparation for forced entry. Polish mechanized units are 5 kilometers away, ready to move forward if Lithuania requests support. NATO Command Authority gives standing orders. If Russian forces cross the border without permission, treat it as Article 5 situation. All member states are obligated to respond. At 06:45 AM, 38 minutes before the ultimatum deadline, the Russian convoy commander receives a message on military frequency. The convoy begins withdrawing. Vehicles turn around, move back from the border. Within 20 minutes, the Russian force is gone from the immediate area. Moscow announces through diplomatic channels that Russia expects productive negotiations on transit arrangements. The crisis de-escalates, but does not resolve because the underlying tensions remain, and the military forces on both sides stay at elevated readiness, because next week or next month or next year, someone might try again. Strategic outcome. Brinkmanship succeeds at avoiding war, but fails at resolving issues. The Suwalki Gap remains NATO's most vulnerable point. Russian forces remain capable of closing it. NATO forces remain insufficient to hold it without reinforcement. The crisis proved that both sides will go to the brink. Next time, the brink might be closer. Lessons from command decisions. First lesson. Geography is destiny. 80 kilometers defines strategic vulnerability for entire alliance. Small spaces create big consequences. Second lesson. Timing matters more than strength. Forces that arrive late are forces that do not matter. Rapid reinforcement is the only reinforcement that works. Third lesson. Resolve is relative. NATO held together this time. But the debate about who would fight for what revealed fractures that adversaries noticed and will exploit. Was escalation avoidable? Who bears responsibility? What decision would you make in that room? The questions linger because the global conflict room analysis shows that this scenario is not history, but preview. The gap remains. The forces remain. The tensions remain. Only the calendar changes. Subscribe to Global Conflict Room. Inside the room where history changes.